The time is just gone 17 minutes past 9 as we welcome you back to the second half of the show, News and Views. It is with myself, Inayat Wadi, this morning, right here on Salam Media. Now, still to come from now right until 10 a.m. We are talking about Africa, we're talking about the Climate Change Summit, and we're also taking a look at social cohesion. And this is going to be a live interview in studio with the chairperson of the Phoenix Religious Center, Maulana Muhammad Tariq. But that will be at around 9:30 this morning. But right now, we're going across to be joined by Neville van Rooy, a community outreach coordinator for the Green Connection. Neville, good morning to you and welcome to the show.
Good morning to you, Anayat, and good morning, assalamu alaikum to all the viewers that is listening to us. And once again, thank you for this marvelous opportunity.
Yes, walaikum salam. Wonderful that you are able to join us now. You come to us at a time. Obviously, we're talking about the Africa Summit. And just this morning, as I was driving to the studio, the whole issue surrounding global warming, and we're talking of temperatures. And it said 2023 has been recorded in history on average as having the highest temperatures right across the entire world. This includes the global north, this includes the global south, and we in Africa, and now against the background of this climate summit, that we are discussing the whole impact of global warming, the poorest nations. We've seen what had happened at COP28 as well, and the whole issue surrounding global warming and its impact on the poorest of the poor, Africa in particular, Neville.
Yes, indeed, the climate temperatures are rising. We are finding ourselves in this climate crisis, and this climate crisis has been created by the global north, and more especially for us, oil and gas and fossil fuels exacerbating the climate crisis. And at the back of the global south, us here in Africa, that has not created, is not responsible for this climate crisis, is bearing the brunt, because many of these minerals and fossil fuels is extracted in our backyards without our permission, and violating our core human rights and even our right to food production at times. And it's not respecting the lives and the human rights of and environmental rights in South Africa. And we are finding ourselves in this climate crisis. We saw what happened in Durban. There is currently a drought here in the Eastern Cape. It is no longer a distant phenomenon. It is in our doorstep right now. Climate crisis is here, and we're experiencing it already on various levels.
Yes, and it's not only about the global north that is responsible for the climate problems that we are faced with, but also there are many other issues in terms that are playing out, and in terms of dictating, in terms of making decisions on behalf of the global south. And for me, I think this is absolutely important. This is absolutely critical, and a lot of food for thought for the global south to digest against what I have been saying, Neville.
Yeah, indeed. The climate summit is really one of those platforms, international platforms and discussions and interactions, that is really a platform where we can, rectify these wrongs and try to, create an equitable, momentum going forward, building on, restoring what has been done, restoring the planet, see how we can better, place our development efforts, not just on the continent, but around the globe. And so sometimes we find ourselves in these international discussions, and it really comes like a missed opportunity, and disappointing at times when we just see the priorities is being given to the global north, and Africa is once again, having to live off the scraps of the table, and that is not acceptable for us. Africa has a massive potential, to drive the renewable agenda, to drive the alternative agenda towards a cleaner and greener climate, that is not so harsh on the planet. And that is the future pathway that we want to start, talking about and want to start implementing it and want to start seeing. And when we are in this international platforms like this is where we can start that momentum and make concrete suggestions of how we will make that implemented. And by the way, the African civil society organizations and people on the ground has those opportunities and suggestions and solutions that we can go take the momentum forward to the type of planet that we want to see in the future.
Neville, just referring to the summit in itself, now much has been said, much has been debated with regard to the loss and damage fund, the adaptation plans, and determining who will contribute to this fund, who will benefit from it. And all of this has been a major point of discussion at the summit.
Yes, indeed. We really believe that, countries in the global north, that is, those developed countries, can really make a big input. They can show, act responsibly in the sense that because Africa has been a exploitation ground, a gas station for a dumping site for them, for most of them, for many years. We have one company that is, responsible for, exploitation from the southern tip of Africa all the way up to the north with pipelines that is going out of the country into Europe. And how fair is that on Africa? And those countries need to take responsibility, need to own up and rectify the injustices of the past and rectify the exploitative and human rights violation abuses that has been done on the continent. They have the opportunity to do so. This is why there is a revolt and people are standing up and people are rising up, and the revolution is now inevitable because we are realizing that these companies and countries don't want to own up to this violation and abuses that they have caused on the continent of Africa.
Well, definitely. And I think, the statistics actually speak volumes because when one looks at Africa, this is a continent that produces less than 4% of global greenhouse gas emissions. Yet we have been the hardest hit as far as climate change is concerned, to the extent that we are even told that from the summit, $100 billion a year is required for the infrastructure against the adverse weather, and also at the same time protecting the continent, protecting its crop from droughts. And all of this, at the end of the day, is important for the biodiversity, for the human well being, and generally the environment as a whole, Neville.
Yes, indeed. It even shows further when we talk about even the water bodies of this continent is very powerful and diverse water bodies, and though and human our human lives are centered around those water bodies. And now you have industries that comes in and does not even respect our life and livelihoods around that specific water bodies, and comes with fossil fuel and extractives that is highly polluted on our people, and therefore displacing people even further back into the life, and further destroying the lives and the livelihoods of people. And that is not fair, that is not just, and we need to start rectifying these things. These industries need to be held accountable. These countries that the industries are coming from need to be held accountable. And on grassroots level, we are finding that there's a lot of conflict being created instead of rectifying these wrongs and these human rights violations that is taking place. And also it puts these people further back in terms of equality, dumping them further into poverty. And we are talking about how will we rectify this, even if we're talking about climate change, rectifying the wrongs and restoring our environment. Our environment is key even to our food security, and that needs to be respected as well.
Well, interesting that you mentioned food security because Africa can be the breadbasket for the entire world. Just a few countries in Africa. And, when you speak about restoration, when we talk about rehabilitation, these are absolutely important. These are critical. And I'm sure these are fundamentals, Neville, when we are talking about a green revolution for Africa.
Yes, we cannot separate even economy from ecology. It's important that we need to have a clean and a sustainable and healthy economy ecology, so that we can have a healthy economy. So if you destroy and pollute the ecology, the ecosystems where people are living from, you are immediately attacking the economy as well, and that needs to be seen. But we need to take this from the roots and know that people, are living in harmony with nature, and that needs to be respected, and that needs to be built on and rectified, not bringing in pollutive industries that is rather, exacerbating climate change, exacerbating like fossil fuels. But you need to, look into the existing infrastructure and the existing livelihoods of African people, and not have a case like the Ogoni land that is now being destroyed, for example, by an industry of oil and gas. That is not acceptable for the people of Africa. And that's examples is happening all around the country, all around the continent.
Neville, I know we are talking about Africa, but just coming back to South Africa and South Africa in itself, as far as this green revolution goes, and South Africa in addressing the impact and the negative impacts of climate change, is South Africa doing enough? Where does South Africa fit into all of this?
South Africa is part of even the Paris Agreement, and they have signed on to that. But what we have seen now in South Africa, we see even more, which is a concern for us, more fossil fuel applications and projects is being launched in our continent. For example, there is a company that is having half of the ocean to itself. And this is unacceptable for oil and gas that wants to exacerbate climate change, and that is a concern for us. Then we have even those car power ships, which is also liquefied natural gas that they want to have. And then we know that we already have also a coal industry that is very active in this country. And then we already so much has already got so much fossil fuels, but the potential that this country also has is not being leveraged enough for us in terms of renewable energy and alternative sources that can be used, to address even our energy needs, to address our carbon footprint. And that needs to be the direction that we take, instead of a fossil fuel intensive direction that they are currently showing. It is a concern for us when we see more oil and gas activities is being planned for South Africa as the solution, even to address even the load shedding as well, even to address, the economic of the area. And even as we know, research is showing that these countries, we cannot no longer build on fossil fuels, for the future. One of the quotes of Antonio Guterres says that there needs to be no more new fossil fuel exploration applications, but yet we see our government is pushing, or our country is pushing in that direction, which is not a correct direction to go into.
Well, Neville van Rooy, Community Outreach Coordinator for the Green Connection, we thank you. We do appreciate you taking time out and talking to us this morning. All the best to you, sir.
Thank you so much. Lovely chatting to you.
Well, that was Neville van Rooy with us this morning, and with that, we're going to go for a break. And next up is a live in studio interview. We're talking about social cohesion, understanding why social cohesion is so important. We're going to have with us, live in studio with us, Maulana Muhammad Tariq, chairperson of the Phoenix Religious Center, right here in the studios of Salam Media. So stay with us, and we just like to remind you that this interview is going to go live on the various platforms of Salam Media. You can listen in. You can actually view the interview with Maulana Muhammad Tariq this morning.